Hello and welcome Exiles to a look at my reverse chill Stormweaver. This is all about taking the gloves, the shackles of the wretched, which now have a new mod. Elemental ailments you inflict other than freeze are reflected back to you, and then combining that with the chest piece Sierran Inheritance, which I'm probably pronouncing wrong, which then takes that chill effect and reverses it. We then get a Stormweaver. Instead of getting a 50% self chill, we can get two 35s, which is more speed, more fast, more fun, and we lock in. That's pretty much the basics of it. Now let's go and talk about a little bit more details of the overall build of the character. Now going into a bit more detail on the character. First things first, because we are locking our two gear pieces into Sierran Inheritance and Shackles of the Wretched, this hurts a lot defensively. These are some of your more important gear pieces for defenses. Mainly, I'm talking about your body armor, considering this body armor could be, you know, an 1800 life comms or a 1200 ES chest piece. You hurt a lot of your defenses by putting this item on. I decided to solve defenses via going a mana route. You'll notice I have 5,500 overcapped mana with 1,600 life. This is actually a decent raw EHP pool, which makes us tanky enough for most difficult content. There's still some things that can one-shot us, but it puts us over the edge of into a comfortable situation. For the most part, we're not dying too much. The other benefit of doing mana scaling is we can get damage scaling from things like Indigon and Archmage for gain damages extra lightning, as well as we can get extremely good sustain with the new Quipolatl Thesis. So this thing right here was just added this patch, and it gives you the ability to regenerate mana per second equal to 10% of the skill cost per runic encryption. TLDR is you combine a curse. We chose vulnerability because if this gets reflected at us with the gloves, it doesn't do anything to us. Going from 20 flat armor to 0 armor doesn't really matter in terms of physical mitigation. So it's a non-downside if it gets reflected. And then we're combining it with things like Cascade, Burning Encryption, which gives you that runic encryption, Spell Echo for an extra proc, and Ritualistic Curse, which gives more delay. And the idea is, the more delay you have, the longer this regen lasts. So basically, you place the curse down and you want it to stay there for a while until it activates. And during that, you get regen based on 10% of that skill's cost per runic inscription. So with Spell Echo and Spell Cascade, we actually get multiple runic inscriptions. Technically, it should be 1, 2, 3, and 4. The Echo does a second one above this middle section here. So we're getting 40% of our mana regen per second based on that one cast, and it lasts for, I think the delay is close to 4 seconds that we have here. And not only is it 4 seconds delay, but that mana percent regen amount based on the cost, that 40% of your cost that you're getting back per second is scaled through things like mana regen, mana recovery rate, arcane surge effect, which gives another more multiplier to mana regen. In short, you put this rune into your gloves, or soul core I should say, and you use these links with vulnerability. Every time you cast, you're going to get a lot of mana regen. Notice the stat sheet here. It says we have 700 mana regen. I cast once and all of a sudden we have 2,000 mana regen that lasts for about a couple seconds. And not only that, you can ramp this. The more you spend, the more it scales. It just goes up and up and up, and you just keep getting really, really insane sustain throughout the mapping. Downside is you have to press this button, you know, every couple seconds. You have to remember to press it. We are a reverse chill. Our character moves very fast. If you get cast speed on your wand, I have int, but if you get cast speed on your wand, you'll cast it even faster. And it's pretty easy to weave in and out because you have such fast action speed. So there's that good quality of life, but you still have to remember to press the button every now and then to generate that mana regen. If you don't remember to press the button, you are eventually going to scale up your mana cost to the point where you just start spending your mana down and then you die. So that's why you have to remember to press this button to get that mana regen. You kind of have to just weave it in every few seconds for that sustain, but it's a very powerful sustain at that. Now, aside from the mana regen, you'll notice we are not using Mind Over Matter, but we are using Sacrifice of Mind. Let's talk about these for a bit. Mind Over Matter would be nice in terms of letting this mana pool be effective for defense, but I personally found the 50% less recovery rate was too much additional less recovery rate on the build and not worth it in terms of mana sustain. So I didn't end up going Mind Over Matter, and instead I went for more just damage taken from mana in the tree, 10% here, 16% here, 16% here, 15% from a body armor rune, 19% from amulet, 20% from ascendancy. You get the idea. We ended up getting to like 99% damage taken from mana before life. Realistically, best in slot would be probably like 96, 95, something like that, where some damage is going through, combined with recoup on your chest, just this corruption outcome. If you have like 97 mind over matter effect, this would recover 5 times the amount of damage that goes to your life, which could end up feeling pretty convenient. So that way your mana pool is just a little bit more efficient and you still have sustain for your life pool. It's kind of a balance you want to strike. Ultimately, if you would like to go CI, you'd have to put this somewhere else in a different keystone, and you'd have to solve your stun another way. I personally decided I'd rather just have stun and freeze be a little bit mitigated by having a decent life pool, and that's why I didn't go CI on this character. But if you can figure out a good way to solve your chaos damage, then you need to get 100% mind over matter to go CI. Following up not grabbing mind over matter because I had 50% less mana regen, we actually end up grabbing Sacrifice of the Mind even though it has 50% life or mana regen, because this is a 50% more multiplier on how much mana you actually have. It lets you overcap with regen. Because we have so much sustain from Shackles of the Wretched, it felt justifiable to do the overflow, whereas it didn't feel justifiable to do mind over matter and have both of them, if that makes any sense. Ultimately, what you need for this is just an Undying Hate with Kurgle. I would recommend only using one cranium. The first cranium always gives you an attribute. Grab all attribute or int is what I'd recommend. And don't use a second one. The first one is guaranteed your jewel will be safe. The second one has a chance to delete your jewel. So just use Kurgle +1, because the only important stat is that first attribute stat. The follow-up stats affect like the small nodes you grab along the way, which we don't take in this build. That's all you need to know about that. Sacrifice the Mind, big overcap mana, feels very good in terms of tank. So that covers our defensive layers. We're going for mana regen, a lot of mind over matter effect, and then combining that with a character that moves very fast. We chill the enemies for like 35%, so they're pretty slow, and then we're moving 70% faster. It is just trivial to dodge things, so all that ends up feeling pretty decent. Now let's talk damage. I chose to use the plant skill Entangle just because I like it. It's a cool skill. It's fun to play. Could you play a different spell? Absolutely. Okay, there's a lot of good spells out there. I just chose Entangle because that's what I wanted to play. And to invest into Entangle, we just really went into Wild Surge Incantation. That's really the only specialized nodes we have in the tree, is the Incantation plus the Entangle. Outside of that, you could really take this skeleton of a character and modify it for whatever spell you wanted. It would work just fine. Specifically, when we're talking about the scaling for the character and why it's generic, we are using generic spell damage or gain damage scaling from having wand mods, percent spell damage on gear, and Archmage, which means all of this extra mana we have is giving us, 100, 120% gain as extra damage from Archmage. And then combined with that, you'll notice we're using this helmet, the Indigon, which gives you a lot of spell damage based on mana you've spent recently. So the damage is generic crit scaling plus some mana scaling for spell damage from Indigon and gain damage from Archmage. Just to showcase the difference this helmet makes for our tooltip, right now we have 38k. If I start spending mana, you'll notice it very quickly ramps. When we're waiting for a boss to spawn, when we're casting our own abilities, it will continue to ramp. The more longer you're fighting the boss, the more it ramps. Just as you're mapping, you're casting abilities, you're spending mana, and this thing will get you percent damage. Now, specifically, I want to stress, if you're using Indigon, you have to strike an appropriate balance of mana cost. If you have too much mana cost, you will ramp too fast and you'll spend your mana into non-existence. If you don't have enough mana cost, then you won't ramp as fast as you would like. I personally went for the real safe chill approach of going for a minimal roll of cost. I'd recommend 5% roughly is probably the sweet spot. Maybe you could go for a little bit more mana cost. I didn't super min-max my mana cost. For example, our main mana ramp source, I actually put cost efficiency on. You could play around with the level of your skill to change it to make it higher cost or less cost. Originally, I was using Unleash, which the base cost of the skill was like 1800 mana. In my opinion, that ramped way too fast. It would give you a ton of regen, but you'd run into the situation whereas if you just randomly forgot to cast your curse, you would instantly hit this wall where your Entangle is really expensive too. You spend all your mana right away and you'd be super vulnerable. So I would recommend striking a balance between, you can adjust your vulnerability or your curse levels. You can adjust the support to be efficiency 1 or 2, and you can adjust the increased cost per mana spent recently. I opted for the lowest possible mana spend cost. You can probably go a little bit higher than this. I'd recommend probably about 5, really, which is like the normal minimum roll. But you could maybe get away with 6. You'd have to rebalance the level of the skill and stuff like that around a bit. Play with it how you will, but that's what I settled on. That felt comfortable to me. It's a vicious cycle, whereas the more you put into spend, the more controlled you have to be with your gameplay for when you're casting skills, but the more damage you get out of it. You get the idea. All right, so that covers damage scaling and the defenses. As for the gearing, it really comes down to, can I fix my res while fitting as much mana and mana regen on as possible? I'd recommend breach rings that have good mana rolls plus good mana regen, and go for res plus chaos res. You can also force mana regen rolls on suffixes with Essence of Hysteria. Like, for example, you could buy a ring that had 16 all res, chaos res, and then mana on it. For example, this is exactly what I did, is I bought a ring that had chaos res and all res, and then I gambled a 1 and 3 for Essence of Hysteria to remove that third mod to give mana regen. That's the sort of thing. And then Essence of the Mind, perfect Essence of the Mind can add percent mana. So really, you just need to look for a ring that has good flat mana, some okay resistances, maybe even cast speed if you can get resistances elsewhere, and then Hysteria can help you hit that mana regen roll to go along with it. So that's ring. Amulet, it's all about the +3, and then on top of that, if you could add in percent mana, flat ES, spirit, if you want to try to force in some extra spirit reservations, could be decent. But the important thing is you need to add the damage taken from mana before life mod. This is a Kurgle modifier. What you can do is you can force a collarbone to add a suffix with the dextral omen of necromancy of suffix. You know what I mean? What I'm talking about. And then use an omen of the black-blooded, which forces it to be a Kurgle mod. I would recommend echoing this. There's like 6 or 7 Kurgle suffixes that can occur, so it's not guaranteed to hit damage taken from mana before life. But that's the combination you're looking for right there. As for focus, it's really just trying to get a high mana / energy shield focus with +2 levels. Crit chance and mana regen go a long way. So does cast speed for quality of life. Boots, it's all about movement speed, res, and I just realized I never really got a very min-max pair of boots, but that's okay. That just fixed the res at the time. But yeah, you get the idea. You're looking for ES plus movement speed plus resistances, mana if there's a more budget option there. And for belt, life, mana plus resistances is really what you're looking for. If you're ever adding on a third affix with the belts, using the Ulamon, preserved collarbone, the Ulamon, liege, omen, very high likelihood you get lightning and chaos res as a result, because there's only like 4 Ulamon mods and one of them is the hybrid res. So that's the sort of thing you're looking for gearing. For charms, I went with 2 stone charms just because I really hate getting stunned, and 1 freeze charm. Mana flask, it doesn't really matter. Probably having a higher tier mana flask to just press when you get into a awkward situation is the play, but I just went with Lavianas because I didn't want to think about pressing my mana flask. Oloroth's Resolve would just be better for tank, and I should be using that, but I don't want to get people asking me whether or not it's mandatory to use that flask. It's absolutely not. It's just a nice defensive upgrade. If you can afford it, use Oloroth's. If you can't afford it, just use a regular life flask. It's fine. You don't really end up clicking it very often. Only a small 1% or 2% or 3% of damage is going through your life, so your life number just really doesn't move very much. So occasionally you'll press a life flask just to top it off when you're a little bit low. That goes over most of the gearing. Now let's talk a bit about the guide. I updated the Mobalytics, basically giving a rundown of the basic mechanics of the character: defense, offense, mana balance, mind over matter, jewels, quest rewards, and a couple FAQs like, can you play this on a non-Stormweaver? The answer is yes. The difference that Stormweaver makes is it just lets you get 2 35% chills, which is just faster than 50% action speed. But does that mean you can't play reverse chill with other builds? No, other builds could do it. They have other benefits from their ascendancies. Get creative with it, play what you want. And the other question is, can I play reverse chill without the expensive version of Shackles of the Wretched? You'll notice I have Shackles of the Wretched specifically with the chill mod removed. This is mandatory for Stormweaver. It is not mandatory for every other class in the game because you can make chill duration that lasts longer than 6 seconds. The immunity is only for 6 seconds. So what happens is if I chill an enemy, reflect that chill to myself, I will get chilled. And if my chill duration is longer than 6 seconds, it will last the entire duration of the immunity and I will be able to reproc the chill on myself and keep going. It is only mandatory for Stormweaver because Stormweaver has to proc 2 chills sequentially right in a row, whereas other classes, they only need 1 chill on them. So the answer to can you play reverse chill without the expensive version of gloves? You can, but it's going to be on a non-Stormweaver version because that's the way you can get double chill is required to have that mod removed, whereas a non-Stormweaver only needs 1 chill. So if you inflict 1 on yourself, you're immune for 6 seconds, but your chill lasts 6 seconds. You get to reproc it. You get the idea. Upsides of the character, fast, high damage, good sustain. The downsides is if you want to do Stormweaver, it requires an expensive pair of gloves. And screen clutter, when you're ramping before a boss, if you're just like spam casting vulnerability, it gets kind of like, ugh. You know, it's like, look at that, all the burning ground on screen. It's kind of ugly. So there's a bit of screen clutter in the character. And there is a bit of a 2-button play style of the character because you have to remember, you know, every 3 seconds or so, cast a vulnerability in there, make sure your mana regen is proccing from the Quipotal's Thesis. Outside of that, I have basically my progression of acts 1 through 4, and then my 84, and then my level 92, 93 endgame here. And then you'll notice there's one section here called alternate pathing, and I mentioned it earlier on as a way to get chill immunity. One of the downsides of this character is we shock enemies regularly, we reflect that shock back to ourselves, and we take 25% increased damage because of it. This hurts our defenses, and you could get around this with an alternative pathing. I did not test this out. I think it would work, but what the alternative pathing is doing is pathing to crystallize immunity and then make shock immune your biggest. You need basically to have more green gems than blue or red gems for shock immunity. You could also opt to just anoint crystallized immunities and have a bit less duration on your chill because you lose unbound forces. That works as well. You can make that choice for yourself. The downside of doing this pathing is you lose cast speed here and here, so a bit of quality of life, and you lose AoE scaling. The upside is you get some additional jewel sockets, which means you can add in some extra, maybe bit of damage scaling, stuff like that. You get a lot of int on the travel, which gives you more mana. It's kind of up to you. I like this here. I just was kind of too lazy to do the pathing. You could just go for the anoint, but then you'd have to add in some extra green gems to your character. But that's what that tree is showcasing, is you could go for something like this, or you could anoint it. I don't necessarily recommend it. I didn't test it, but that's just there to say, hey, this is something you could do if you wanted to. Aside from that, I have the Atlas I use. I don't recommend copying it. You can if you want to. A lot of people ask me what I do. I do essences plus boss rushing is usually what I do for like dropping fragments. I didn't really want to delve into the degeneracy of just building a full snake and just going tink, tink, tink on divines. You still make a lot of currency selling fragments and other things that are valuable that don't drop in the temple. So you can do that if you want. And then a bit of a rundown on the mechanics. So yeah. That's the guide on the Stormweaver reverse chill. Hopefully I did an okay job explaining it. All in all, this character was really a pretty good time, very fast, and it's part of the reason that my next character is going to be in SSF, because quite frankly, if I do another character in Trade League, the next character I play is just going to feel really slow compared to reverse chill, and that's going to feel bad. So my thought process is if I run SSF, I'm working with absolutely no gear, no currency, and I mentally can tell myself, okay, it makes sense my character is this slow. Whereas if I'm playing in Trade League where my stash says I have 1,000 divines in it, it's gonna feel bad making a character after this one because it's just a little bit crazy how much faster and fluid your character feels when playing reverse chill versus other things. So a bit of caution. You will feel some level of I don't want to necessarily play other characters after doing this because reverse chill, it just feels like a different game almost with how fast your character's moving in comparison to what you may have played previously with the normal 40% movement speed boots, you know, that sort of thing. And one other thing I forgot to mention really quickly, avoid these. If you don't have chill, or if you don't have ignite immunity and you don't have the any way to prevent self-ignite. Avoid gain damages extra fire. Headhunter can also proc damages extra fire. If you don't want to die to ignite through this source and you want to be able to put gain fire onto your build, you will need to run you would need to run crystallized immunities for ignite immune rather than shock immune in order to put these on. Initially I tried the character where I had the gain all elemental rune, and I PK'd myself with ignite very fast, and I swapped that out and I no longer died to self ignite. So just some little advice I would say. All in all, hopefully you guys enjoyed this video on the reverse chill Stormweaver. And next up, we'll be doing an SSF run, actually in hardcore, trying out the discipline of Varashta. I'm not 100% sure how to say it. But anyways, that's what we're doing. Thanks for watching, Exiles. Take care and peace out. Have a good one.